speech showcase at Fawn Creek Hunter. So here's some things to expect tonight. You're going to see a lot of different kids performing different scripts of all varieties. They've worked really hard throughout this entire process for this moment. Okay, not just this moment, but regionals, which is this weekend and then state. So I ask to all of you to silence your cell phones. If you have to use the restroom, do it in between performances. But most of all, when they're done, just give them a round of applause, is all we ask from the audience today. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the administration. When I came to Fawn Creek, I had a dream of starting a speech and debate team. I never imagined it would become what it has in the second year. We have the largest team in northwestern Oklahoma in our class, which is Class 3A, and that's against programs like that's with programs like Cherokee and Texoma that are established and have been around for at least 15 to 20 years. So I'm very thankful to the administration. Not only that, but the faculty here at Fawn Creek is extremely supportive of these students practicing their scripts when they're in class. If they finish their work, the teachers allow them to come to my room and work on their scripts. So we're very thankful for that. We're also thankful for Derek Quinn. Showed us how to run the light system and the sound system. So we're thankful for that. The team so far this year has had tremendous success. So last year it was kind of smaller. We only won one tournament, and it was towards the end of the year, and there weren't very many people there. But this year we knew there was going to be something different, and the team grew a lot. We had a lot of 8th graders that became freshmen that are competing for us, and so far we're on a 4-tournament win streak. We went to 6 tournaments. In those tournaments, we've competed against teams like Alba, which is considered 4A, which is pretty large for speech and debate. And they've been an established program for 30 to 35 years, and we beat them at a tournament. And so the success that the team is having right now is only because of the hard work of these students and how dedicated they are to what we're doing. So tonight you're going to be seeing all of our regional qualifiers perform one of their scripts. Some individuals compete in as many as 3 events, which means they will have 3 scripts in total when they go to regionals. Tonight you're just going to see one. Before each individual performs, I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of what that event entails, because most of you here, you probably don't know much about speech and debate. And so I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what the event is and why they're doing it. Lastly, there's a few events we could not show you tonight for some. I'm going to let the students show you why we chose not to showcase those. So Showcasing Extemp, which is an event where students draw a political question and then have 30 minutes to prepare a 7-minute speech over that question, is Hallie Jones.
To answer my question, will Donald Trump survive the next 4 years in office? All 3 main points are from CNN.
So we're going to stop it right there. That is extemporaneous speaking. The reason why we won't showcase that is it is a political event, and so the student will draw the question. And that could be one of those questions. Why does Donald Trump survive or not survive the next 4 years? And the student gets 30 minutes to find sources that are credible, whether that be from CNN or Fox News or wherever, to answer that question however they see fit. The next event we won't be showcasing tonight is Lincoln Douglas Debate. LD is a debate based on values and morals. So the topic our debaters will be debating at regionals on Friday is the development of artificial general intelligence is immoral. So here to show you what a small portion of that debate may look like is David McFadden.
Subpoint C. U.S.-China war goes nuclear if we do not stop the development of AI. All life will cease to exist.
So, hopefully, you can see why we chose not to showcase those tonight. LD debate takes a lot of preparation. Hallie Jones and David McFadden do that. They spend a lot of time writing cases, going through information, and hopefully in hopes that regionals can go to state. So finally, we're going to get to our first performance. Our first performer is our only senior on the team. Mason came to me either late December, early January, and she had a script or a speech that she had done at a local competition. And so what we did to that script is we made it a little bit more what we would call speechy. Okay, so in speech and debate, it's kind of its own world, and it's more out there. It's louder. There's sometimes some singing, sometimes there's some crying. And so with her speech, that's what we did. She performs in an event called Original Oratory, which is a 10-minute time event. What's so significant and special about this event is it's one of the only events in speech and debate that the performer and competitor writes themselves. So without further ado, let's give it up for Mason Thomas.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. sing along. It's the state song. Suit yourself. Sit alone and talk and watch a hawk making lazy circles in the sky. I know you're probably wondering if you're in the right round or not, but I can assure you that this is definitely the new event, State Songs. Just kidding. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the dangers to farmland, wildlife, and the cost of the community from solar farms. I started this speech because I've had a love for vocals since I was very young. I chose this issue because I'm from a rural area and solar farms have had a major impact on the farmers in my community. And I've seen what it does to the land, wildlife, and the community. You see, some people believe that solar farms can be a good thing because they provide energy. I do not totally disagree with them, but I oppose to where the solar farms are being built. There are other alternatives where solar farms can be built besides on farmland. This would include parking garages and large abandoned warehouses. The definition of a solar farm is a large collection of photovoltaic solar panels that absorb energy from the sun, convert it into electricity, and send the electricity through a power grid for distribution and consumption. According to Garfield County Conservation Coalition, the land can never be restored after 30 to 40 years, which is the average contract of a solar farm. It will stay destroyed. Solar power generation is very inefficient when looking at the amount of land consumed. An average solar farm is 3,200 acres. Once the lay of the land has been altered and is covered with panels, imagine water running off the panels during a rainstorm. This will cause erosion and increase contamination, which will have an effect on the surrounding areas. Think of the livestock and the natural wildlife that need certain water sources for survival. Not only does solar farms destroy land, it is also dangerous to wildlife. Stated by CED.org, perimeter fencing, often 6 feet high and topped with barbed wire, will restrict wildlife movement in the area. It causes them to be trapped. These farms cause loss of habitat to the wildlife because they have to clear the land, which destroys their natural environment. Solar farms attract migrating waterfowl because their reflective surfaces look like bodies of water. When they land and collide with the panels, they oftentimes die. Finally, the effect of the cost of the community. Replacing farmland, loss of crop sales, impact on businesses such as co-ops, fewer jobs which equals less income, due for homeowners, noise and glare, loss of property values and taxes. The projected loss to the community over 30 years is $100 million. All these contribute to harming our community. Solar farms will have a major influence on how we live. And as you can see, solar farms should not be constructed in rural areas. Education on the laws of farmland, the destruction to wildlife and their habitat, and the cost of the community is key. According to StopSkeletonCreekSolar.org, there is currently a staging area east of Enid. And if this solar farm is constructed in this area, it could possibly be the largest lithium battery solar farm in the United States. Our rural fire departments do not have the manpower, equipment, training, water sources, or finances to deal with this kind of emergency. One lithium battery storage facility caught fire in Lyme, New York, which is approximately half the size of the one planned for just outside of Enid. The fire in Lyme occurred 4 months after it was in operation, and they had over 100 personnel dealing with it for 36 solid hours. I am told that we only have about 160 rural volunteer firemen, and most have full-time jobs. The smoke is toxic, so hazmat suits were required, and residents in the area were told to shelter in place, to not open their windows, or to run their air conditioners. Even though at this time I do not live close to the solar farm staging area, one is being built right across the road from my friend's house. She has already posted videos of the damaging effects that the planned solar farm is already causing. One way you can help protect our community in the future is by signing the emergency moratorium petition, which pauses all industrial solar projects. This gives legislators time to get regulations in place. One other way you can help the issue of solar farms is by speaking up for what you believe in. Using your own voice for an issue you strongly believe in will help in many ways. I believe that by speaking up, it allows you to grow within yourself and gives you a passion to stand up for the right thing. Solar farms may not seem like a big issue to people in the city, but they destroy rural areas and the community around it. Find something you're passionate and speak up. Now, let's look back on the lyrics we talked about in the beginning. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain, and the waving wheat can sure smell sweet when the wind comes right behind the rain. Pasture for the cattle, spinach and tomatoes. Oklahoma, every night my honey lamb and I sit alone and talk and watch a hawk making lazy circles in the sky. To know what waving wheat smells like after the rain, and to see cattle in the pasture, and to enjoy a hawk making lazy circles in the sky. Get involved. It could be your community next.
That was Mason Thomas performing Oklahoma, the Solar State, in the event we call Original Oratory. Our next event is going to be performed by Callie Chisholm. So Callie performs in humorous interpretation, monologue, and poetry. So Callie came to us last year as a sophomore and joined about halfway through the year, and she did what's called monologue. And this year she wanted to do a lot more. So she chose a script that had a lot of movement, which is what humorous interpretation is. So humorous interpretation is a 10-minute activity that allows the performer to use the entire setting, or in this case, a stage. And it lets them be truly as funny and crazy as they want. And that's something in speech and debate that a lot of the kids enjoy. By the way, today is the first time any of these kids have ever performed on a stage, so all of their competitions, or any time they do perform, it's in a classroom setting. The only time they would ever perform on a stage is if we made it to nationals, which next year we're going to attend. So without me talking anymore, this is Callie Chisholm performing in Cheering My Way to College.
Dreams. Everyone has them. Not the falling asleep kind, but the I'm gonna do something with my life kind. In my speech, we meet Babs, who has a dream of attending college. But the way she tries to achieve this dream is, well, let's say different. So, chase your dreams or something like that. Cheering My Way into College by John C. Havers. Hello, and thank you all for coming at my request. I realize that all of you at the Scholastic Aptitude Testing Board have never received a finished exam quite like mine before. Well, I guess it's time the SATs got a little shaken up from somebody who knows a wonderful way to prove that I should go to any college I choose. Yes, rather than restrict myself by taking the traditional Scholastic Aptitude tests, I'm going to give you a dose of my SATs. Skills and talent. That's right, it's a new millennium, so kids ought to have lots of options to get into the college of their choice. And I've chosen an incredibly challenging yet dynamic discipline to prove my worth to all of you. Cheerleading! Yeah! Go team! Go SA team! Give me an S! Give me an A! Give me a T! Great, that was T ribbon. That was a pun. A pun is a play on words intended for humorous results. So all you SAT committee members from the English Testing Division can mark on your charts that Babs knows her English. Who here loves humor? I know, I do. Humor can be so funny. Give me an H. Give me an A. What's that spell? Ha. Say it again. Ha. Now say it 2 times in a row. Ha ha. Made you laugh. See, comedy can be fun. Now I'm going to tell you a joke right after I do a cartwheel. Did you notice my body was in a circular shape when I did that cartwheel? That's almost a sphere. So all you SAT committee members from the mathematics division can mark on your charts that Babs knows her math. Speaking of which, here's that joke I promised you. What kind of underwear does a mermaid wear? Answer, an algebra. Get it? Like algebra from the SAT, but it's a joke? I made that joke up all by myself. I was inspired after watching Nova. You all will have to decide whether that should give me points towards English or math. I've got a lot more for both, so I think my bases are covered. Speaking of bases, I'd like to take this time to say that I'm worth waiting for. I don't have to be physical with a boy to know that I'm special. This is sort of the public service announcement portion of my test, and I just think it shows my well-roundedness. And that wasn't a pun. But all seriousness aside, it's important to take public service announcements very seriously. Sometimes they're about smoking, sometimes they're about salmonella. Either way, as part of the public, I really appreciate every public service announcement I've heard. every last one. Give me a P, give me an S, give me an A. What's that spell? PSA. Here's another quick PSA. That is totally cool. Okay, now it's time for a word problem. No problem for me. Choo choo, chugga chugga chugga. If one train leaves Washington, D.C., going 50 miles an hour, choo choo, chugga chugga chugga. And another train leaves Chicago going 80 miles an hour, and they're both heading towards Philadelphia. Which train will arrive first? And easy, go to the train station and see, or check out the World Wide Web for train schedules. Come on, everybody, give me a W, give me another W, give me another W, give me another W. What's that spell? World Wide Web, wheelie. Yeah! By the way, that was another pun. Can I get extra credit on the English portion of my test? Okay, now it's time for another PSA. This time, that stands for Perky, Sunny, Athlete. That's me. Don't be mad at me because I'm beautiful. I don't hold my beauty against you. Sure, everything comes easy to me because I seem perfect. Sure, my life so far has been one great big American dream. And sure, I know how hard it is when you're not me. But I'm the only me there is. Don't forget that. There's just one me, and I'm the only me I've got. And that's important. Oh, and don't do crap.
Sally Sugar performing in humorous interpretation. Our next performance will be from Peyton Miller. Peyton competes in prose, foreign extent, and standard oratory. Tonight, Peyton will be performing her prose, which is an 8-minute script that allows her to have her script in a binder, but she can only move from the waist up. Prose is only for freshmen and sophomore students, and it is meant to help beginning actors work on their emotions and face to bring out a performance. Performing Cupcakes in Coltrane is Peyton Miller.
Poet Robert Browning once wrote, "Motherhood. All love begins and ends there. True words have never been spoken." In his tribute to motherhood, Juwan Hawkins introduces us to a mother of a special needs child, and it is her love for baking cupcakes and listening to the jazz musician John Coltrane that pulls her through her darkest times. Cupcakes and Coltrane by Juwan Hawkins. Yeah, you like that? That's an old cut of John Coltrane from one of his early works, My Favorite Things. I love jazz, especially when I bake. It just gets me in the mood. My ex-husband Ty turned me on to jazz when I was pregnant. When I found out I was pregnant, I sat by the toilet for 40 minutes. Finally, Ty walked in and said, "So, do you want me to call your mom?" I was filled with so many emotions. I was filled with excitement, but I was also terrified at the thought of birthing a child. Let me tell you, I must have spent about $4,000 on useless books like What to Expect When You're Expecting, Young Mother's Fit Pregnancy, you name it, I bought it. Still, none of them could prepare me for the tornado called motherhood. So, quick question. What do you do when you get a call about your son pulling down his pants and tinkling in the sandbox? Or better yet, what do you do when you ask your son why he pulled down his pants and started tinkling in the sandbox? He said he was just trying to spell his name. Because you think on one hand, well, hey, at least he's trying to spell his name now. But on the other hand, you have to somehow reprimand him for pulling out his ding dong at recess. When I got pregnant, I bought nothing but girl clothing for the first 6 months of my pregnancy. After all, the doctors did tell me James was a girl. And here we are, 5 years later, at the controversial sandbox. It was my grandmother who taught me how to bake. She made the best pies and cakes in North Carolina. She even had her own bakery in 1967. She said if it wasn't for her Scotch cake, she wouldn't have gotten so many people to support her. They loved to drink though. She put loads of booze in her cakes. Now, I don't put alcohol in my cakes, but I do play jazz music as I'm baking. Cake just tastes a little better as John Coltrane oozes out of the radio as you whip your batter. Ty would play a small radio tuned into the local jazz station just about every night during my pregnancy. We would just lie down together and talk about our life. That's what drew me to Ty. He was just a great listener. We would just lay there on top of the comforter, share dreams with each other, and our whole life was sat out in front of us. And soon enough, that life would include James. Yes, there were a few complications during my pregnancy, but nothing but good night's sleep and good prayers couldn't fix it. After James was born, for the first few years, Ty and I, we noticed he wasn't developing as fast as he should. For example, one day, I remember very vividly, James was running around the house and accidentally fell and scraped his head. While he was crying hysterically, I picked him up and said, "Is Mama's boo-boo okay? Let Mama kiss the boo-boo." He just kept looking at me. So I said, "Mama loves you. Can you tell Mama you love her back?" He just kept looking at me. Still to me, James, he was just a slow bloomer. It's like my grandmother used to say,
Some cakes take a little longer to rise, doesn't mean the oven isn't on right.
after a while, Ty insisted that we get ourselves checked out. So I took him to the doctor, everything seemed normal. She tells me that James is fine and we shouldn't be worried. I looked at Ty and said, "See, nothing's wrong with my baby. He's just a slow bloomer." During the summer of our marriage, things were getting a little rough. I wanted Ty to be home more, but I couldn't get that through his head. He said, "Work is work, and work is the reason why this family's Superman." So, like a good wife, despite the continuous late nights, I made it work. As time passed, though, we still couldn't get through to James. So after his teacher suggested that we hold him back for another year for developmental reasons, we decided to take him to a new specialist for a second opinion to get him reevaluated. After about 3 hours of doctors hurling questions after questions and test after test on my baby, one more physician walks into the room. And I just remember the look of pain on that doctor's face before the words, "Autism spectrum disorder," came out of her mouth. And a mother has instincts, but not my son, right? The doctor handed James a red lollipop, and I just swept him into my arms and held him tightly. On our drive home, James immediately falls asleep in the back seat. Me, I'm a mess, but there's one thing that will calm my nerves: jazz music. I slowly reach over to the radio and stick the track 6 on the CD player. While Ty drives, he stares straight ahead like a drill sergeant. But as soon as the music of John Coltrane oozes out of the radio, he reaches over and grabs my hand and smiles. I smile back. And just for a second, I remember how much I missed the feeling of us. Then poof, it's gone. We both look away because we both know our love is like a distant memory. It's fading. It's becoming harder and more difficult for us to love each other like we used to do. So after about 2 years of consistent fighting and bickering, Ty and I, we decided to get a divorce. Please know that our divorce has absolutely nothing to do with our son. We just couldn't find the time to love each other anymore. In about 2 weeks after our divorce became final, I found myself staring at my reflection in a half-empty bathroom, sitting there telling myself, everything is fine. James needs us to be happy right now. Everything is fine, so just smile. Everything's fine, so just smile. And then I finally thought about what I was saying to myself. And I was lying to myself again. And I couldn't help but be filled with anger. And I know that sounds selfish. I wondered why Ty couldn't be the Superman for the both of us. Or why is it that my son at the age of 5 couldn't even acknowledge me? Or why is it that the moment Ty loses his job, this whole family is unbearable? I keep asking God for some type of contentment, but it still hasn't come to me yet. I know I have many things to be thankful for. I have a beautiful son who's anything but ordinary, but I need to start counting my blessings. Oh darn, I almost forgot about the cupcakes. They are hot, hot, hot. Once they're cooled down a bit, I'll put supreme chocolate icing on me for my son's 6th birthday. He's going to love them.
So performing next is Ricky Brown. Ricky performs in standard oratory, dramatic interpretation, and domestic extent. Tonight, Ricky will be performing her SO, which is essentially the same as what Mason did earlier, except Ricky did not write the speech. So it's a 10-minute timed event. It's just a speech that's been done somewhere in any place. It could be a Gettysburg Address. It could be John F. Kennedy's inauguration speech. As long as it was a speech given, it can be done as an SO. So many times, what's chosen to be an SO is something that's already been done as an original. So for example, Mason's speech, her OO, it's a pretty good one. So what we'll probably do here at Pond Creek is we'll do is what we're called recycle it. So in about 3 or 4 years, when another student comes up, we'll have that student do Mason's OO, but an SO. Another interesting thing with Ricky and even Peyton and some other students that are performing tonight is they were the first students to ever perform in our novice division. Novice is strictly for 7th and 8th grade or any middle school. And so it's really encouraging to see students who did this in middle school, competed for a year, and now are having success in high school. So without further ado, Ricky Brown performing Won't You Be My Neighbor.
Children's television should not be confusing. Elmo, what creature is he? Dora the Explorer, where are her parents? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? No confusion there. Fred Rogers not only holds the title for the only adult male to look at kids and a cardigan, but he was a game changer. In one episode, he wanted to teach children how long a minute was. So he set a timer for 1 minute and sat there watching it tick for 1 full minute. Allow me to demonstrate. Yeah, I can't be quiet for that long. Mr. Rogers broke all the rules. He taught lessons on love, acceptance, and understanding. I worry that we don't live in that same neighborhood. We no longer ask, won't you be a neighbor? But instead say, you can't be my neighbor. Hatred is woven deep into the history of American life and still exists today. Whether it's a swastika spray painted on North Carolina State University campus in 2019, or the murder of 2 black transgender women, Dallas, 2021. Hatred is real, and it's close. Most of us don't understand how hatred operates, and that's a problem. Oprah Winfrey once said, you cannot hate others without hating yourself. In her national winning oratory, Halima Bajir is to prove this quote true as she discusses hate in America. It's no secret our country is divided now more than ever before along ideological lines. The question is, how do we unite as a people against this hate and begin to heal? And Won't You Be My Neighbor by Halima Bajir. In a New York Times article titled What's So Bad About Hate, Dr. Andrew Sullivan writes that we seem, at times, to have no better understanding now, more than ever before, about what hate truly is. You know, Mr. Rogers had a special connection to number 143, so much so that he almost always tried to maintain his weight at 143 pounds. He explained his infatuation with that number in this way. It takes 1 letter to say I, 4 letters to say love, and 3 letters to say I love you. And we still belong to the 143 Club. However, we've replaced that 4-letter word love with another 4-letter word, hate. And that is my first concern. In our society, we simply love to hate. We even had a dating app that connects people via shared hate. In 2017, the dating app data released the data they collected from the residents of each state. Michigan hates Pride and Prejudice. They do know it's a book, right? Nevada hates feminism. Out of all the isms, racism, sexism, cannibalism, feminism is the one you hate. Be better, Nevada. And evidence suggests that we're not just using the word more, we actually feel more hate. I mean, think about the last time you got upset by someone on MSNBC, or CNN, or Fox News. Were you frustrated by what they said, or morally disgusted? Which, according to NYU psychology professor Jay Van Battle, is the very definition of hate. It's the feeling that's erupting in us and around us. You know, Mr. Rogers would be saddened to learn that according to the annual FBI hate crime report, 143 is now the number of hate crimes reported in this country each week. My second concern is how we respond to hate. We do one of 2 things. We either distance ourselves from it or ignore it entirely. How many times on social media have you blocked a person or post you disagree with? How many close friends or family members have we stopped talking to because we lie on opposite ends of a certain spectrum? When we disagree with people on abortion, immigration, or gun control, we stop talking. But when we identify that hate others, we keep them at an arm's distance so we don't have to deal with it. But founder of the Equal Justice Initiative and lawyer Brian Stevenson writes in his book, Just Mercy, you can't understand most of the important things from a distance. You have to get close. And while we're pretty good at distancing ourselves from the hate in others, we're even better at ignoring it in ourselves. You know
California Santa Barbara professor George Lippis explains the way we ignore hate via the iceberg effect. It's really easy to call it the external hate that is undeniably visible, the tip of the iceberg. But how often do we attend to the internal biases, prejudice, and even hate that we might harbor? Now, this does not mean that we stop protesting and confronting hate, but that it should be met with some pretty powerful introspection as well. Because no matter how much you build up somebody else's neighborhood, it won't do much good until you can first fix your own. Now, I do not mean to simplify hate. It is complicated and multifaceted. I know this because I have known hate. My freshman year of high school, a boy in my class called me Osama bin Laden. I hated him for what he said to me, and in that moment, all I wanted was for him to be gone. Soon later, I realized my feelings towards him weren't rooted in sheer anger, but in pain. Psychologist Bernard Voda writes in his book, Overcoming Destructive Anger, that hatred is reaction to and distraction from some form of inner pain. Each moment of hate is a temporary reprieve of some form of inner suffering. It is much easier to hate on someone who we disagree with or who has wronged us, because as author James Baldwin tragically notes, the reason we cling to our hate so stubbornly is because once it's gone, we'll be forced to deal with our pain. For every assault rifle turned on a nightclub, for every gone planet in a place of worship, for every hateful news and burning cross, you have someone who is fundamentally broken and radically afraid. I say this not to justify those who have done unspeakable things to others, but that so no matter what they have done, we never stop seeing them as anything but human. You see, America doesn't just have a problem with hate, it's got a problem with hurt as well. To guide us to a new way to think about and tackle the issues of hate in America, I'd like to offer the following 3 R's. First, reflect. Rooting out the settled insidious ways hate has shaped our lives takes time and careful introspection. What do we feel and why exactly do we feel it? Second, revisit the way we address hate. Ask non-accusatory questions like, I don't fully understand your viewpoint. Can you explain what that means to you? And third, take responsibility. Staying quiet and being a bystander are some of the ways we contribute to hate. And there's a 4th R, Rogers. Mr. Rogers would ask his live audiences to sit in silence for 1 minute to think about that person, place, or community in which you feel loved and accepted. I'm going to offer a moment of silence. I want you to think about a person or a place you feel loved. Go ahead. Mr. Rogers often called that moment of silence a gift, a chance for peace to triumph over war, love over hate, and justice over greed. Now let that be a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Our next performer is Elizabeth Stahl. Lizzie performs in poetry, original oratory, and dramatic interpretation. Tonight, Lizzie will be performing her poetry, which is an 8-minute event that is only for juniors and seniors. They're allowed to have a binder with their script, but not allowed to have movement below the waist. It's a lot like prose, but it's for individuals that are juniors and seniors, and usually for poetry, it's something that is sad, but sometimes, in Lizzie's case, can be humorous. So, in Feeling Like Cinderella, Elizabeth Stahl.
My life is certainly not a fairy tale, but lately, I can't help it. I feel like Cinderella. Our lives are totally different, but lately, I can't help it. I feel like a Disney princess. Okay, so we're totally different. Cinderella's mother died. My mom's alive, but I cried when she told us she wanted to try an alternative lifestyle. Mom stayed with Dad and me for a while, but eventually she left us to go live with Kate, with Lisa, as in like lady who owns her own flower shop. Since then, it's just been Dad and me. Perhaps no other fairy tale has touched more young hearts than Cinderella. In this modern spin of a tale of rags to riches, Kendra Sparks gives us a unique perspective. This is not your ordinary retelling of the story you grew up with. So get ready for a little sass, spirit, and at times sarcasm in Feeling Like Cinderella by Kendra Sparks. Cinderella's dad remarried. My dad joined all of which was totally against my advice. I get it, he wants to look younger, but still, when I'm hungry, I don't eat fake food. Trust me, fake is fake. And it doesn't take an Einstein to understand that a person can't find a soulmate when, while on the first date, the other person can clearly see the huge age discrepancy. Regardless, it is through this social equivalent of a modern-day Cupid that Dad met a dietitian named Katie. It's stupid. All she talks about are carbs and calories. But lately, while chomping on a raw stick of celery, I noticed Katie's been a little more interested in Dad's salary. She has 2 teenage daughters, Mary Kate and Ashley. Like setting a trap for a curious mouse, Katie has her sights set on her own full house. Clearly, Cinderella and I both have father issues. Is it any wonder I feel a certain bond with this blonde fairy tale princess? Okay, Cinderella attended the ball. I went to a rave. Okay, so I gave into the curiosity. What can I say? Mosh pits are fun. Another reason we're so totally opposite, Cinderella got to sit in the back of a pumpkin-turned coach wearing a beautiful gown and a pair of glass slippers given to her by a fairy godmother, a few mice, and half a dozen singing birds. In case you haven't heard, all I had to work with was a dull pair of scissors and my thrift store t-shirt and jeans. It didn't amount to a hill of beans because knowing I was going to the rave made me feel like Cinderella. If you'll recall, at the ball, once the clock struck 12, Cinderella left the dance, and in the process, lost a glass slipper on the steps of the palace. Alas, the prince, knowing he had found his one true love, went way above the call of duty to search the kingdom for the girl whose heart had won his. Gee whiz, if it worked in a fairy tale, then maybe the rave didn't have a prince, and since the artist formerly known as wasn't there, I dared to find my own unique version. Okay, there are those who have an aversion to punk rock music, but the lead guitarist of the Big Butt Skiers was hot. Not that he was looking for love, but he found it anyway. What can I say? Our eyes locked, and he accidentally knocked over his microphone stand. It was as if the whole thing was planned. As the lead guitarist walked out on stage, it was like a page out of a steamy teenage novel. His long golden locks flew through the air like a propeller on a plane. His hair slung down right onto the cloud. His icy blue eyes were so piercing that the iceberg hit by the Titanic would have melted. As the lead singer belted out the last song, I thought long and hard. I did my best to channel Cinderella. What reason could I give this master of decimal deliciousness to come searching the city looking for me? There was no way I was going to give up one of my sneakers. Jeepers creepers, shoes are not free. Besides, the whole glass slipper thing was an accident. But do I dare? Shall I chance it? As the last notes were played, I stayed until the last spotlight dimmed. I skimmed my fingers into my back pocket and took out my mysterious souvenir. As the band took their bows, I stormed my way towards the front row and tossed my modern-day glass slipper out to the man whose hand reached out and caught my gift. I shifted my eyes, and to my surprise, the time on the Arbitron read 1. Oh no, my curfew! Luckily, that was that with Katie. I was in bed before he got home. As I drifted off to sleep, sweet sounds filled my ears. It was just as I feared. My ears were still ringing from the rave. For the first time in my young life, I was singing in my dreams. It seems I may have found my Prince Charming, but the question is, will he find me? He called me at 3 the next afternoon, and as soon as he called, I started to worry. I needed my mysterious souvenir back by Monday morning. His name is Blake, and he's coming by later to give me back my pseudo glass slipper. If that's not enough to give me a heart attack, Dad told me Katie's bringing the twins by tonight. I might as well laugh. It's just so Cinderella, you know? Go with the flow, I always say. Besides, even if the twins find Blake to be cute, the Cinderella theory is moot. There won't be any girl on the stage last night, you ask? My phone number, taped to my student ID.
Our next performer will be Summer Holden. Summer performs in dramatic interpretation, monologue, and poetry. Tonight she'll be doing her dramatic interpretation, which is just like humorous interpretation, but sad. And so this is a part of our showcase, just so everyone knows, where the next few strips are sad strips. So if at any time you feel like you need to cry, we encourage it here in Speeching today. It makes our performers feel like they've done good. Funny story about Summer real quick, as she's sitting behind the curtain. The first time Summer performed was last year in monologue, and her script called for her to jump up on the chair and be really loud. If any of you know Summer, she's kind of tall, and she didn't realize that her chair was underneath an overhead projector. Really funny story. Summer did really good in that tournament and made it to finals. So to speak about her resilience in performing, she hit her head on a projector, continued in that prelim round, and got first place. So performing Last Words, Summer Holden.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Do people still say that anymore? I don't remember the last time I was at church, let alone a confession.
In my opinion, the only sin that has happened here is the hellish abomination they decided to serve me for my final meal. You ask for steak, and they absolutely murder it. That's a poor choice of words. The steak was tough and had absolutely zero flavor. I'm getting served the last thing I will ever taste in my entire life, and it's absolutely the worst thing I've ever tasted. The mashed potatoes were probably instant, and the carrots were just as mushy as the potatoes. So please, Father, use your holy water on that and send it back to which it came. I'm sorry. I know you're here with an important job, but I promise you, my soul carries no baggage. I'm completely at peace with my actions. I don't know what more confessing I need to do. I've already confessed everything to the police, and I've held back but not a single detail. Imagine a world where the scales of justice are not balanced, but tipped by pain and vengeance. Our story centers a woman who has found herself on death row, but not for an ordinary crime, but an act driven by an extraordinary and harrowing set of circumstances. This is not merely a tale into the woman's descent into the abyss of criminality, but a poignant exploration of the choices and consequences that arise from the deepest wells of trauma and rage. Last Words by Tracy Ness. On November 5th, I followed William Bradley Thompson, the third, down an alley and murdered him. Just saying his name should tell you he's a rich, spoiled little brat. A fraternity bro, if I've ever seen one. That night I found him at a local bar called his frat house cronies. Even after all the news coverage on what he'd gone through, he still felt the need to get drunk and hit on girls. I just cringed every time he tried. Finally, after being denied all night, he left the bar, and I followed him. Did you know most women's weapon of choice in the 1920s was poison? Why did I need poison when he drank himself to incapacitation? Halfway down the block, he ducked into an alley because he couldn't hold his liquor. While he was doubled over, I took my knife, the full 4 inches up to the handle, and sunk it into his torso. Not once, not twice, no, I worked quickly and I sunk it in 5, 6, 7 times before he could react. He fell to the ground and I stood over him. William Bradley Thompson III tried to scream, but there was too much blood welling up from inside of him. I made him look me in the eyes so he knew who had done it. He may have gotten away with the murder of Sadie, but that night he got what he deserved. So there, I waited until the police found me with his lifeless body. Sadie and
hear her laugh. I would push her on the swing until my arms hurt and she still wanted more. I miss that smile, that laugh, and her energy. And all of this would be ruined by the crap being said by lawyers that were bought with Daddy's money. William Bradley Thompson III would sit there with a dumb smirk on his face as lawyers suggested that Sadie shouldn't have dressed the way she did or acted the way she did, and maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have been beaten and raped. They painted my sister as a horrible human being, and William Bradley Thompson III as an innocent frat boy who never knew anything to ruin his or his family's reputation. I don't understand people who say their deepest fear is dying alone. What's worse, dying alone or dying with a monster in the room? By the time that they announced him as not guilty of all major charges, and just gave him a slap on the wrist for the minor parts, I had already made up my mind on what I needed to do. What's that? Do I have any last words? No, I don't. Because my message is not one that ends here. I understand that there are protesters outside the jail, women gathered all over the country calling for my release. William Bradley Thompson, the second's lawyers, had made sure that there would be no chance of that happening. When will we learn that women are not objects to be ruled over and used to the desire of others? We have hopes and dreams and a voice of our own. Every day, women are persecuted for just existing. A woman is trafficked off the street without anyone knowing. A young girl in Iran removes her head covering and she's beaten to death by several men and no one blinks an eye. So last words? No, I don't. Because there's no finale in the near future. There's a storm brewing, and I am but one of the first raindrops to fall. And when those winds finally cease, I hope the sun shines a little brighter on us all. As for final thoughts, I only have one. I'm ready to see my sister again.
Our next performer is Hallie Jones. Hallie performs in dramatic interpretation, Lincoln Douglas debate, and domestic extent. Today, Hallie will be performing her DI, which is just what Summer did, but hers is obviously a different script. So Hallie Jones in eBay.
I make lists. It's what I do. It's who I am. It's how I roll. Lists keep me organized. Lists keep me sane. Lists validate my OCD. The minute Mom and Dad announce they're gonna have a baby, I'm shocked. I'm surprised. I'm numb. I thought they were getting too old to have any more kids. I thought they barely tolerated each other. Most of the time anyways. I thought they were through with all that stuff. I was wrong. With me graduating, I guess it dawned on me. They'd be alone. With me going off to college in the near future, I guess they realized they'd be living in an empty nest. With me leaving the house, I guess they decided they didn't want that someday. My parents have been famous for months. My parents didn't know if they could have another child. My parents said they'd pray about it. Their prayers were answered. Anticipation is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, you have the joy of awaiting that moment you've been dreaming of, while on the other, you have those dreading moments that seem to last an eternity. In my case, we see a young girl filled with anticipation, awaiting the birth of her baby brother. I can't believe it. I'm going to be a sibling. I am no longer going to be an only child. I'm going to have a baby brother to teach me how to throw a ball. Or I'm going to have a baby sister to teach how to throw a ball. I'm going to be throwing balls to babies. How old does a baby have to be in order to catch the ball? We live in the country. We live on a farm. We live too far away to shop in department stores. We order lots of things online. Rather, I order lots of things online. My parents have a fear of computers. My parents have a fear of technology. My parents suffer from technophobia. They aren't opposed to me having a computer, they just don't want anything to do with it, which is fine by me. A baby will require lots of things. A baby will need certain things. Our baby will have everything it requires and needs or wants. Our baby is going to be the most spoiled baby in the universe. Mom's sewing room is going to be the new nursery. Mom's sewing room is going to be a sweet retreat for the baby. Mom's sewing room is going to be a theme. I make a list of possible theme ideas. Disney, too commercial. Princess, could be a boy. Sports, could be a girl. Stars, no. Better for the baby to reach for those when it's older. Noah's Ark, perfect. Noah's Ark is a gender neutral. Noah's Ark is one of the most inspiring stories of faith in the Bible. Noah's Ark will be the theme of our baby's new nursery. I do all the shopping online. I go to the internet's biggest sites, Amazon, Walmart, Target, and of course eBay. Online, I order every cool Noah's Ark themed nursery item I can find. I buy pictures and curtains. I buy a Noah's Ark mobile. And I even purchased a Noah's Ark inspired motion lamp. I like the idea of animals dancing 2 by 2 around a room. That way, our baby will never feel alone. In Mom's first trimester, I paint the nursery and baby-proof the house and make lists of possible baby names. If I would have known how many things there were to do, I would have started making lists a lot sooner. If I would have known how exciting having a little baby brother or sister would have been on my Christmas list years ago. If I would have known how much closer it would have brought us all together as a family, I would have gone to the North Pole myself. My mother is glowing for the first time in years. My mother's always been beautiful, but now her smile radiates enough light to fill the entire room. In Mom's second trimester, I order online all the big ticket items. I order a Noah's Ark stroller. I buy a crib, complete with Noah's Ark bedding. I purchase baby blankets with appropriate looking graphics. I buy bottles and bibs, a burping cloud, bassinet, and of course, a baby monitor. All essential for a newborn baby. In Mom's third trimester, I take on all the chores around the house. I do all of the cooking and all of the cleaning. I basically became Mom, who, by the way, is huge now. Seriously, beached whales look more comfortable. She looks like a stereotypical picture of a pregnant lady with an enormous beach ball tucked under her dress. She seems drained though. Dad says she's just tired and anxiously awaiting the arrival of Micah. That's right, my parents finally decided they needed to know the sex of the baby. And it's a boy. It's a good thing too, because I want every kind of ball in existence. We got back from the hospital a week ago. My mother's sleeping now. The doctors say she needs lots of rest. I go to the computer and place an ad. For sale, brand new, Noah's Ark themed nursery items. Never used. The whole house is quiet now. The house should be filled with sounds of a crying baby. But Micah is no longer with us. He was stillborn. And as we begin to pack away the nursery, I'm reminded of the lesson learned in Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark wasn't built in a year. And while it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, the flood itself took much longer to subside. I've also learned our pain will take time to heal and time to process. But in time, we will move forward. It is perhaps the final lesson that best serves my family. When you are one with God, you can weather any storm. And there's always a rainbow. There's always a rainbow. And one day, when I see Micah at Heaven's Gate, I'll take his hand in mine and run to the rainbow's end. And he'll finally teach me how to throw that ball.
The next performer is Layla Handler. Layla's a freshman who was also part of our novice program last year. Last year, she competed in poetry and domestic extent. This year, Layla is competing in prose, domestic extent, and monologue. Today, she'll be performing 11 Valentines. Layla Handler.
Martin introduces us to a fictitious young man who learns early on that opposites can indeed be attracted to each other and know to go through the compulsory education alone. In 11 Valentines by Jake Farmer. It all began, I suppose, on Valentine's Day, 11 years ago. Mel was one of my best friends. Oh, Mel is short for Mel. Since she was a girl and I was a boy, we were unlikely best friends. But we were best friends nonetheless. We didn't start out as best friends. In fact, we didn't start out as friends at all. Funny how time changes almost everything. Mel and I sat next to each other in kindergarten. My last name is Daniels. Her last name is Donna. So yes, we had those type of teachers. Those teachers who go out of their way to, 1, seat us in rows according to our last name, 2, make us eat next to our alphabetical neighbor, and 3, threaten us with our lives if we ever change seats. For the first 5.5 months of school, Mel and I didn't speak to each other. After all, Mel was a girl, and I was a typical kindergarten boy. Obviously, nothing in common. Then, in early February, it started. Our teacher had everyone decorate a shoebox. The rules were simple. Everyone was to paste white and pink and red construction paper to a shoebox brought from home. Then, decorate said shoebox with hearts and cupids and other lovey-dovey symbols. We were kindergartners. Hello, no one's in fondness with anyone. Unless you count things like 1, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 2, Matchbox cars, and 3, riding a bike through muddy puddles. Those things I love, but pink boxes filled with sappy valentines, no way. Finally, February 14th goes around. There's a big classroom party. I noticed not everyone's shoebox is decorated with hearts and cupids and other lovey-dovey symbols to declare their fondness for others in the class. Mel's box is decorated with pictures of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Matchbox cars, and muddy bikes. When I saw her box, I thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe kindergartners can fall in love. You were the coolest girl in class. Your friend, Marcus Daniels. Mel also liked my card, because she gave me an original card too. Mine read, "You're the only boy in class who doesn't stink, Mel Donovan." Years later, Mel confessed that she was simply telling the truth. I was the only boy in class who didn't stink. She added, it made eating lunch next to a boy more tolerable. The next few years were filled with pleasantries and small talk, and of course, the exchange of Valentine's each year. A real breakthrough happened in 6th grade. I was an okay student, but Mel was outstanding. Memorizing formulas and facts just came naturally to her. By this time, her parents had bought a house in my neighborhood. Mel would invite me over sometimes to study for a big test. Her parents were nice. They knew we weren't going to study or anything. Mel and I were just friends. She even came to some of my basketball games to cheer me on. It was nice having my own personal cheerleader. In high school, we only had 2 classes together, English and math. And even though we were no longer required to have assigned seats, Mel and I sat next to each other. Together, we studied Romeo and Juliet. We learned quadratic equations, and even though we're no longer required to decorate a shoebox for February, Mel and I still exchanged Valentine's Day cards each year. It was our way of saying, I'm with you, rain or shine. It was a comfortable friendship. Our junior year, all anyone was talking about was the junior prom. It was a no-brainer. I asked Mel if she would go with me. Obviously, she said yes. We had a great time. I've never seen Mel dance, but the girl had moves. Luckily for me, my mom had been giving me dance lessons all throughout my sophomore year. The night of prom, I drove up to Mel's house, I walked up her sidewalk, and I rang the door. Mel's mother opened the door and escorted me in. Her father was upstairs because he wasn't feeling well. When Mel walked down the stairs, I thought, Cinderella has nothing on me. Mel looked beautiful. After a few pictures, we were on our way. The junior prom was held in school gymnasium. I've never seen so many balloons in my lifetime. Mel and I danced to every fast song, danced to every slow song. Like I said, we were having a great time. Then, Mel got a text from her mom. Her father had a heart attack, and she was on her way to the dance to to pick Mel up, and the two of them would go to the hospital together. I walked Mel outside to wait for her mother, and said a prayer asking for her father to be alright. Mel's older brother, who's away at college, sent a text to her mom. Sadly, she tried to text him back as she was rushing to the hospital. Mel's mother apparently didn't notice that her car was now coming on the oncoming traffic. The doctors say neither Mel nor her mother have felt anything. It happened in a split second, as they say. Mel's father suffered another cardiac arrest when he heard the news. The doctors say he'll be okay, but it will take some time. Life is precious. We're told that all our lives. Life is precious. It is, you know. I can pretend like Mel was a good friend. She was. She was my best friend. But deep down, she was more than that. I loved Mel. I loved her. And I had 11 Valentines to prove that she loved me too.
Our next performer is Ember Seek. Ember competes in standard oratory, humorous interpretation, and prose. Today she'll be performing the story of the cultural banana.
Last summer, I was traumatized by a banana. It happened in France in the Digi restaurant off the Seine. So the waiter comes up to me and gives me a menu. But the thing about menus in France is that they're French. So usually I would order in English and they would give me snails, no matter what I had said. I don't know, French waiters look at me and think, a skinny, yet devastatingly handsome American boy sitting in my restaurant? He must want the small plate of disgusting mullet soaked in butter. Not to knock the pseudo-rods, but I felt like something else. So I looked at the menu, chose randomly, and ordered. In confident French, the waiter looked at me and said, "Are you sure?" I replied, "How was I going to be fooled?" The waiter came out 10 minutes later carrying a huge silver tray, and it was then I realized what I had ordered. Two big bowls of ice cream, tossed onto a plate, and in between them, rising majestically into the air, was a gigantic banana with, well, you get the idea. Désir Godot, said the waiter, or in English this means the widow's desire? Obviously, miscommunication can be a problem for me. Fortunately, my language barrier issue and the result of the banana fiasco caused no serious damage, other than major embarrassment, but our misunderstandings can be ruinous for everybody, both home and abroad. Basic misunderstandings are consistently harming our world, our schools, and even our personal lives. In the increasingly global society in which we live, ignorance of other cultures and their customs has become a growing problem. In his award-winning oration, Isaac Matto discusses what steps can be taken to remedy this and why it's so important. The story of the cultural banana by Isaac Matto. Not all communication has to do with language. In his book, The Silent Language, Edward Hall explores the hidden rules of society. Things that are never overtly said, but instead are learned as steadfast axioms of social behavior. In America, for example, getting to the point quickly in business dealings is valued above all else. But in Greece, this is seen as boorish or crass. And failure to recognize these basic rules can often lead to disastrous bananas. But one of the most interesting hidden rules is the concept
a personal space. Personal space is represented by an imaginary circle around each person that expands or contracts in different circumstances. If you're speaking to a stranger, the generally accepted distance between you and the other person is about 5 feet. If they're a friend, 2 or 4 feet is acceptable. And if they're standing within 2 feet of you, they're either crazy or non-verbally telling you they wouldn't know you better. A lot better. But even at speech tournaments, we have unwritten rules of space. The speaker usually stands up here in the front of the room, because then it's easy to ignore them. When I walked through those aisles, I was upsetting an unspoken cultural taboo, and I'll bet it made most of you feel uneasy. But the thing about hitting rules is that generally, the results aren't as simple as embarrassing friends. They have very real consequences. In 1 year alone during the war in Iraq, there were more than 300 civilian deaths reported at American checkpoints. You see, when a soldier would see a car coming toward them, they would first raise their hand like this, a signal for it to slow down. And if the car didn't, they would then shoot warning shots into the air. And if the car still kept moving, they would then be forced to shoot at the occupants. More often than not, in the aftermath of the shootings, instead of insurgents, they almost always found 2 unarmed women and children. So why did they just stop, you might ask? Well, in Iraqi culture, this doesn't mean stop. This does. And shooting into the air is a celebratory gesture. So what these people thought they were seeing were American soldiers waving and celebrating the liberation of Iraq. So innocent civilians lost their lives due to a simple misunderstanding, and one that could have been so easily avoided by asking anyone on the street. In her book, Ruby Payne explores the concept of class as culture. She states that each socio-economic class has its own hidden rules of society that can often limit social mobility. A good example is a dinner table. In a poor family, the first question I'll be asked is, did you get enough? Survival is the foremost purpose of food in these families. But in a middle-class family, the first question I'll be asked is, do you like it? There's always something else to eat in these situations. But in an upper-class family, the first question I'll be asked is, do you like the way it looks? There is such an abundance of food in these families that rejecting a meal based upon appearance alone is considered acceptable. And another good story is one Payne tells about a woman who becomes rich and moves into a local neighborhood. She goes to a party at somebody's house and notices a beautiful cubist painting on the wall. Trying to compliment the hostess, she says, "Wow, that almost looks like a Picasso." The hostess turned around, glared at the woman, and never spoke to her again. In fact, it was a Picasso. Yet the hostess felt like it was being implied that it was a mere imitation. The worst insults in upper-class society. Yet the recently rich woman had no way of knowing this was insulting, because she was living in a different culture with different societal rules and taboos. One of the biggest problems with societal miscommunication is that it often limits social mobility. And this is particularly prominent in urban schools, where poor kids are taught mainly by white middle-class teachers. And this problem is often due to language. In her book, Payne explains there are 3 basic types of language. First is frozen diction, or Bible quotations. And then formal diction, which is what you use in writing an essay. And finally, there's casual diction, or slang speech. The problem is, as these kids growing up in these poor neighborhoods often never get the chance to learn formal diction. Then they get to schools and are expected to use it in their essays and in their speech. They end up failing standardized tests not because of lack of intelligence, but just because nobody has ever bothered to teach them formal diction. Until teachers realize this and begin to specifically teach their students the language of the middle class, we will be condemning smart kids who happen to be poor to a permanent life of poverty. And obviously, I'm not asking you to learn all the hidden rules of all the societies in the world, because that would be impossible. But we do need to realize that they exist. The problem here isn't ordering some elongated dessert at a French restaurant. The problem is sending soldiers overseas with only a rudimentary knowledge of the cultures they're trying to save. The problem is the growing gap between the rich and the poor. And those are only two examples. I give so many more. And until we acknowledge these issues, we will never be able to make the cultural banana of miscommunication split for good.
Our next performer is David McFadden. David competes in dramatic interpretation, domestic extemp, and Lincoln Douglas debate. So David this year, he originally just planned to do extemp and do debate, and then he came to me a little ways through the year and he was reading the script book and he said, Chris Davis, I really think I can do this piece. I relate to it. And I think you'll find that funny after you see his piece, and I think it might be Edgar Allan Poe.
The doctors don't want me to read any more Edgar Allan Poe. They say it isn't healthy for me. I told them I like Edgar Allan Poe. I told them I might be Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, I know I'm not. He's dead. I know that. But if anyone were to come back, it'd be him. Besides, I feel like Edgar Allan Poe. I think like Edgar Allan Poe. I've had his thoughts. The doctor said that was an indication I had a problem. A manifestation of my illness. It's funny because I never thought much about Edgar Allan Poe till I got here. Oak Brook. It's nice. They do what they can. Beautiful grounds, gardens and lawns. Excellent food. Everything taken care of for us. They tell us we're not normal if we'd like to stay. I started sneaking in the library night after, reading this book they have by Edgar Allan Poe. One new story every night. The Fall of the House of Usher, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Mask of the Red Death, The Black Cat, The Premature Burial. I was so familiar with each one, it was like reading my own diary. And I became more and more convinced that I myself in some way was Edgar Allan Poe. Have you ever felt like you're crazy? Like you don't know who you are or why you're acting a certain way? Well, I have. Not me. My character and my piece. Got a pretty okay reason. A really good reason. And I think I might be Edgar Allan Poe by Dawson Nichols. The doctors say it isn't healthy for me to read Edgar Allan Poe. I asked them why they had it in the library. And they removed it. They like to be in charge here. There are some things they want us to think about and some things they don't. Like the fire. The doctors think that if I talk to them about the fire, I'll have some sort of breakthrough, but it's just not true. I could talk to you, I just don't want to. I mean, people don't dwell on painful things. People don't dwell. You live life, you move on. Why isn't that normal? And besides, I don't want to talk about the fire with them. I just want to examine it, dissect it, make it devoid of meaning. I was living in an apartment building. One night, there was a fire. There was a loud explosion, and we all had to evacuate. We stood on the strip of grass across the street. It was actually quite beautiful. The orange and yellow flames looking up the outside of the building. And you couldn't see the smoke all too well, but if you looked up, you could see there was something moving underneath the stars. Then a woman came running out. She was only wearing a brassiere, and her naked body was smeared with soot. She was screaming something about how her child was still in there, and wouldn't somebody help her? A woman did try to wrap a blanket around her, but she just threw it off and tried to run back in. Some guys got in her way, though. So she came back to the strip of grass we stood on and started to scream at us. Then she came up to me. I don't know why she chose me. started pounding my chest, screaming that a real man would go in there and save her child. I looked down at her and she just started to hit me across the face. Some guys came and got her off me, but from my lips I already started to bleed. And I was wondering, what had she meant by that? A real man, and why had she chosen me? I couldn't see anything at first. There's just boiling smoke everywhere, and my eyes were stinging. I made my way up to the second floor. I started going door to door to see if anyone was in there. As I got towards the end of the hall, though, I saw one door was open. There was a lot of smoke coming out of there. But I thought I'd heard something. So I got on my hands and knees and called. It's a very odd perspective. Something like what a cat or dog might see. Only the tops of the chairs, table, and even the sofa were covered in smoke. I made my way through what I think was the living room onto the tile floor. And when I came across a porcelain bowl, I knew I was in the bathroom. That's when I saw her. A wide-eyed little girl sitting there. She was curled up in a ball and was crying. I said hello, but she didn't say anything back. She just looked at me. I told her we needed to go and she needed to come with me, but she didn't move. So I picked her up. And she started kicking and screaming and even bit me, but I held on. I made my way back out through the smoke-filled living room and into the hall. It was hotter there now, and my chest and face and arms were all stinging where I'd been burned, but I made my way down the hall towards the stairwell. But I guess the fire had spread throughout the first floor because we couldn't get back down that way. So I went up, past the third, then the fourth floor, and onto the roof. There was smoke everywhere, and there were flashing lights, and there were sirens. It was all so confusing. So I set the little girl down. She just ran away from me across the roof. She tripped and fell into a pile of gravel. I went to the edge of the roof, looked down at all the people looking up at the orange light. They were all just sort of milling around, and some of them even started pulling up at me. Although blocks of smoke kept getting in the way, I could see that there was a fire engine at the end of the drive. It couldn't get through though. There was a Mayflower moving van blocking the way. A group of firemen had started making their way down the drive, all holding the edges of something that looked like a trampoline. And there was a guy with a bullhorn, but I couldn't hear him over the fire. Then I heard a groan and felt this cracker in my feet. I turned and saw the other side of the roof I caved in. I ran over to the little girl and I ushered her away from the hole, back towards the edge. And by the time I got back, the group of firemen had positioned themselves beneath us. They were all motioning to us with the circular thing, and I could hear the man with the bullhorn now, saying that the building was going to collapse. I thought we were going to have to jump. I knelt down beside the little girl and held her by the arms. I told her that the building was going to collapse. She was going to have to jump. She couldn't hear me though. She was just screaming. She didn't understand anything. She was too scared. And when I tried to usher her to the edge, she just kept kicking and screaming and tried to run away. So I had to pick her up. It was all dark. There was smoke, sirens and things, and fire was starting to eat up the roof around us. And the little girl was scratching me where I'd been burned. I wasn't angry with her though. I wasn't angry. I was just scared. And the people were shouting at us below to jump, but she just wouldn't jump. And the people and the firemen motioned to us, and she just wouldn't jump. So I held her out, kissed her on the forehead. I threw her. But she was squirming so much, and the firemen tried to reposition themselves, but she only landed half on. and the fire was screaming loud. I still remember the noise it made. The little head, concrete. And I was still holding myself there. It's like a poem that Edgar Allan Poe wrote. I'm sorry. My medication must be wearing off. I'll have to go now. I figured by now more of you would understand my sense of humor. It's fine though. You're all just the voices in my head anyways. Oh, and don't tell the doctors I told you this. But someday.
Our next performer is Lily Wynn. Lily performs in one event, and it is monologue. So monologue is a 6-minute event that calls for a humorous piece and a dramatic piece, and there can only be one character in each event. So you're going to see Lily bring out a chair. This is the only event, speech and debate, to which you can have the use of a prop, and that prop has to be a chair. So Lily will come out, she'll do her humorous, and then transition into her dramatic. Today, she'll be performing Heads Up, Off Whatever, and Captain Crunch in 2% Milk. Lily Wynn.
Hegel once said, "Nothing great in the world has ever been done without passion." In my two pieces, we see two characters who have two different types of passion. In my first piece, we see a young girl go into great detail over her book tour. And in my second piece, we see a girl whose passion was love, for someone she truly loves. In Heads Up, Off Whatever by Dorothy T. Burns, and Captain Crunch and 2% Milk by Matthew Zuka. Maria did not like cultural things, like plays and operas. She also liked to sing. So did her brother. I think his name was Johnny. Maria also liked puppets. In fact, she liked them so much, the Italians eventually named a type of puppet after her. These puppets were very special, and were usually made out of paper mache or wood. They were manipulated by strings. They were called marionettes. When she got older, her mother made her leave Australia and moved to France. And she was forced to marry a man who would one day become king of France. His name was Louis XVI. He was shy, but he was nice. And he let her eat anything she liked. And, according to the internet, Miranda really liked to eat cake. The internet said one of her favorite kinds of cake was marble. And you don't have to be a geologist to know that marble is hard and expensive. Anyway, eventually, Miranda's husband's dad died, and Louis XVI became king of France. This made Marie Antoinette the first queen of France. They were rich. They were richer than Oprah. But everyone else in France was poor. They were so poor that they started a revolution. It was called the French Revolution! The poor people didn't think it was fair that Marie Antoinette and her husband could eat cake all day long, and they couldn't. Well, the people of France grew to despise Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI. So, they marched to the castle, banged on the door and said, "Hey, buddy, quit singing about how you live in a country and your brothers live in rock and roll. We're hungry. Give us something to eat." And Marie replied, "Hey, pipe down out there. I've got kids taking a nap downstairs." Oh, I forgot to tell you. Miranda is now a mother, so she tells them to scram before they would with children. And one of her lady servants said, "Don't you care about them?" And Marie said, "Oh, the kids are fine. They're asleep." And the lady servant said, "No, I mean, don't you care about the people of France? They want us bread." And Marie replied, "Oh, let them eat cake. It's not that bad, I mean." Well, they wanted her cake. So they yelled, "Give us cake! We want cake!" They were kind of like Cookie Monster on Sesame Street, but they wanted cake, not cookies. So, the people of France finally arrested Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI, and they killed King Louis XVI on January 21st, 1793, by chopping off his head. And they took Marie Antoinette to the guillotine on October 16th of that same year, and they chopped off her head too. And, according to the internet, the executor, after the heading of Marie Antoinette, said it was a piece of cake.
this morning. They said you were a nice guy. They said you were a quiet guy. Nobody ever thought you could do something like this. Is it wrong that I felt jealous? That girl talking to the reporters was so pretty. Like someone you cut out of a magazine. Or hired as a cosmetics firm. Prettier than Ella would be. I could never compete with that. But you always told me I was the most beautiful girl in the world. I felt like a loaded gun. A whole tinted powder ready to explode with the words, I love you. Did you love me? On that day, you told me to stay home. I thought we were just cutting classes, but you intended to kill our classmates. I'm putting body bags in my brain saying he loves me not. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me? Were you thinking of this when you kissed me? I felt bullets ricochet in my stomach. Was that just practice? When you held my hand, did you think it was a gun? My pulse, a waiting trigger? When you looked into my eyes, did you see waiting caskets? Even after the newspaper published those pictures, your face, a broken mirror grin, of the dead and wounded, of the linoleum floor painted red by your own fingers, I can't help but long for you. I miss the way your hands clung to mine with such purpose, yet delicately, like they were holding bombs. I miss the way you kissed me. Does my love for you make me an accomplice? Am I just another shell in a chamber? People ask me, what was it like to evoke a monster? I tell them, it is amazing.
Our next performer is Isaac Rockwell. He'll be performing in prose, which is an 8-minute event where he has the binder and he's allowed to have movement above the waist. You're going to notice in his piece it's a little different because he kind of moves his feet, which is okay as long as he just doesn't too much. So, in Don Brown's Body, Isaac Rockwell.
In recent years, there's been a marked revival of interest in the art of dramatic reading. We have dipped into the treasures of Charles Dickens, George Bernard Shaw, and Stephen Vincent Bennet, among others. Yet, there's an entire facet of our culture that has never been tapped. I'm speaking now of that special genre known as detective fiction, where, as some authorities have pointed out, the interests have lately shifted from whodunit to with what. There's also been an increasing emphasis on violence, and the woman across the hall has an awfully good word for it. Sex. As every schoolboy knows, many of these works were written not to be read, but to be as every schoolboy knows, with this in mind, we offer you Don Brown's Body by Mickey Spillane. I'm Mike Cameron, and I don't take slop from nobody. Like this guy, he ankles up to me on the street, opens his big ugly yap and says, "Pardon me, do you have the correct time?" So I kicked him in the mouth, and his teeth dropped all over the sidewalk like marbles. Like I said, I don't take slop from nobody. Sally Dupree. Her eyes were neither black nor gray. They were black and blue. I picked her up in Jimmy's bar. She was lying there, so I picked her up. She was in pretty bad shape.
I'm not just a broad, Mike. I'm around here big with a dirty record. My tide comes $2,000 a dozen, but I'm clean inside, Mike.
I was on a case. When I'm on a case, nobody or nothing takes my mind off it for a minute. We went out to her place. She lived on the St. Ray's roof. Sooner or later, some wise guy or cop was going to find her up there and make her come down. But tonight was ours. She opened her good eye. There was no mistaking that invitation. Her lips were like fresh ketchup on a white tablecloth. My heart throbbed like a stabbed toe. She was waiting on me, a hungry thing. Now, there was nothing between us but us. I spoke. You were a member of the Carney gang at the time that One Finger Matthews put the finger on Soft Spot Sullivan, who at the time was going under the name of Samuel L. Sullivan, and who knifed Morgan Magnuson in the back of the Easy Way garage. The Queen Mary dropped 1146 on the 23rd, and Joy Jacobson was found in an abandoned milk truck 2 years later. What do you know about Dawn Brown? Her eyes found mine. Down below the great idiot city in its old familiar way. Birth and death, love and lust, Martin and Lewis. A long time afterwards, she spoke.
Dawn! Who? Brown?
That took me back. The first time I saw Don Brown was in the locker room at the Y. He was in my locker. He'd been dead about 3 weeks then, judging from the condition of my tennis racket. Who'd be next, I wondered. I looked in the next locker. Bill Brown was in that one. One thing was clear. Somebody was going to have to clean out those lockers. I went out to the street. I passed this kid sucking a lollipop. Don Brown, dead, and him sucking a lollipop. I rammed it down his throat. I hate injustice. I walked for hours. I went back to the place I call home, the Harry Arms apartment 3D. I put the key in the lock. I opened the door. A gun smashed into my skull. Heavy boots ground into my spine. A pair of fists tore into my throat. I saw something coming towards me. It was a fly swatter. This was no ordinary killer. I knew then they were after me. And I knew one other thing. As they threw me over the 3rd floor railing, they were afraid of me. At the 1st floor landing, at the 2nd floor landing, at the cigar counter. The girl behind the cigar counter looked up. She was naked beneath that reversible. She reversed the reversible. She was still naked. A long time later, she spoke.
Bring me your tired, your poor huddle of masses.
I went to the office. My secretary, Josephine, was there. She was made for me. I tried to be good to Josephine. I used to let her kiss my fingertips every once in a while. But now, I carefully put my fingertips in my pockets. Josephine, I have to wait. There was only one thing on my mind these days. What's new on the Dawn Brown case?
I checked this morning. He's still there.
We went outside. My Jeep was parked at the curb. I had a strong feeling it was wired. So I asked Josephine to get in first. She put her foot on the starter. Oh boy. A long time afterwards, she came down. I didn't wait. I knew Josephine. She'd pull herself together. The patrol wagon went by. I thought of Sally. I called her up. Sally?
Mike,
I'm sweating for you, Sally.
I'm clean inside, Mike.
We could talk forever and never get it all said. I was still in the phone booth when the phone rang. On hunch, I answered it. It was the killer. He laughed at me. That was all. Laughed at me. I was no longer a man. I was an ugly thing. I wanted to get his skull between my hands and crack it like a cantaloupe. I wanted to scramble that face like a plate of eggs. I wanted to work him over till his blood ran the color of coffee. That's when it came to me. I hadn't had any breakfast. I was going in a long chance when this tomato waltzes by. She was a tomato surprise. A round, white face with yellow hair poured over it like chicken gravy on mashed potatoes. Her raccoon coat was tight in all the right places. I watched her as she disappeared into a doorway. She shut the door. There was no mistaking that invitation. I followed her in. Inside, it was inky darkness. I groped my way across the room. Her lips were warm. Her nose was warm. She barked. I felt, down, dang it, down! I went back to my place, good old 3D. I no sooner opened the door and they were at me again. This time, I was ready. I smashed my eye into his fist. I forced my rib into his boot. And the first thing he knew, I was flat on my back in the hall. He was standing above me now. He spoke. Look, buddy, you do this every night. This is not your apartment. You're in 3D. This is 3A. After that, everything was like a nightmare. I was sitting in this bar with Sally. What do you have?
Straight Clorox. I'm clean inside, Mike.
Then, I was in this strange room with a strange lawn. How did I get here? What kind of girl was she? Then I was in another strange room with another strange blonde. She had just stepped from the tub. There she was, as though I made her a mess. Our eyes were riveted together. I took a step towards her. I took another. I fell over the coffee table. The next thing I know, they had me surrounded. Blondes, brunettes, redheads. There's no mistaking that invitation.
So that was Isaac Rockwell in prose. Our final performer is Gabby Ayala.
Ayala.
Okay. She'll be performing in standard oratory, which you've seen 2 times earlier tonight, as a 10-minute event. That is a speech that has already been done. After she performs, we will have all of them come out and bow, and then the house lights will come on, and everybody will be free to go. Gabby Ayala performing Live in the Now.
Recently, one day, my mom forced me to stay home from school due to a bad cold. I was feverish, congested, and actually a little nostalgic. Because once I start college in the fall, I know Mom will be around to bring me chicken soup or watch the Great British Bake Off with me until I fall asleep. While it's strange to compare nostalgia with disease, I was surprised to learn I'm not alone in doing so. Recently, Darla Shine, wife of Bill Shine, former White House Communications Director for Donald Trump, expressed a similar sentiment when she tweeted, "The entire baby boomer population alive today had the hashtag measles, not the vaccine. Bring back our hashtag childhood diseases. They keep you healthy." Okay, boomer. And now, although I saw a silver lining through suffering through a cold, a deadly disease, not so much. But there are those who, like Darla Shine, seek to restore or uphold an idealized version of the past, or what some psychologists call collective nostalgia. At some point in our lives, we've all heard someone say, "Back in my day, things were different." But comparing 2 different time periods is never fair. Memory gets distorted over time, so you might end up longing for a past that never actually was. Your selective memory will only recall certain events that make you feel even more nostalgic. And because collective nostalgia can powerfully shape a group's behavior, a longing for the good old days has become a dangerous tool that allows a misremembering of our past to inform our present and rewrite our future. So today, we will first explore society's problematic relationship with nostalgia. Next, we will analyze what's causing us to embrace this mindset. And finally, we will identify solutions, hopefully vaccinating ourselves against an unhealthy relationship with nostalgia. Normally, one wouldn't think of nostalgia, a strong yearning for the past, as being dangerous. But in her award-winning oration, Monique Tinkwan shows how collective nostalgia is being loaded as a political weapon to strengthen nationalism and group identity, with potentially devastating consequences for all of us. Live in the Now by Monique Tinkwan. Scrunchies, Stranger Things, the measles, clearly nostalgia is having a moment. When that becomes problematic is when it transcends popular culture and frames national discourse. According to a May 14, 2019 article published in Foreign Policy magazine, social economist Martha Dusu says, collective nostalgia strengthens bonds between those fantasizing about the same ideal lifetime, consequently mobilizing nations toward those exalted goals. This is exemplified by a movement like Brexit, which is partly driven by nostalgia for British imperialism, or in Russia, where 25% of citizens believe that Stalin's rule was good for the country, and in the U.S., where some desire the restoration of America, where the rights of women and people of color were disproportionate to those of white males. Collective nostalgia goes beyond reminiscence. It glorifies the past at the expense of social progress. Furthermore, when we collectively romanticize the past, we turn collective nostalgia into social amnesia. According to Dr. Henry Gratz, professor of sociology at the University of California, says, Collective nostalgia softens the hard edges of history, intensifying moments we find desirable while delegitimizing moments that foster equality and marginalization. Normally, there's nothing wrong with taking a little trip down memory lane. So, what's caused us to take a collective wrong turn? Research published in the October 20th, 2019 edition of the Journal of Social Psychology says, collective nostalgia is triggered by collective angst. When rapid socio-political change makes a group feel its place in society is threatened, members close ranks and find strength through shared experiences, becoming more hostile and less empathetic towards perceived outsiders. Collective nostalgia is a coping strategy for those dealing with the loss of privilege, also known as your social anxiety, as those yearning for the past are actually yearning for a time when things were better for them. Additionally, because we remember the past as being better than it actually was, we're more likely to long for its return. In his book, The Politics of Memory, Dr. Jeffrey Olich says, thanks to what our psychologists call fading with death bites, negative memories tend to dissipate more quickly than positive ones, affecting the truth of a simpler time. And since our misremembered past is affirmed by our like-minded echo chambers, there is no one providing a reality check after listening to Thriller or watching old episodes of The Cosby Show. When our cognitive dissonance whispers that maybe it was better when we didn't have to grapple with the inconvenient truth surrounding the predatory actions of beloved public figures. Because, like chicken soup or sore throat, collective nostalgia helps the lighter down a little easier. Thankfully, there are solutions that will ensure the rose-colored lenses through which we view our past don't wrongfully color our future. First, since collective nostalgia is triggered by an entry of our social group, we should acknowledge the multiple groups to which we belong. In a March 2019 edition of the Journal of Developmental Science, students reminded of their multiple identities, such as brother or friend, showed more flexible thinking about social groupings. Seeing people as more complex than simply their age, race, or gender, allowing them to better connect and empathize with others. For example, I'm not just a 16-year-old teenage girl. I'm someone's child and a teammate. This mindset can hopefully result in a more accepting attitude across political, social, and generational lines, mitigating the risk of one's group definition of the good old days, acting as a barrier to social change. Additionally, we should remember the past for all its splendor, but also its atrocities and injustices. In an August 28th article published in Humanities, Dr. Alan Levanovich says, collective nostalgia has its benefits, such as reaffirming community and shared history. But this remembered must be combined with critical self-awareness. Like reminding ourselves that those times when fewer people felt empowered to come out as gay or speak about their abuse weren't really all that simple. We've all experienced adversity. But if we learn to embrace the edges of our own past, we could create some sort of herd immunity, one that doesn't ignore the hardships of others or take away from the progress we've worked so hard to achieve. As a teenager experiencing many milestones in my life, I know this is a time for which I will always feel nostalgic. But I hope that I never forget nostalgia is a privilege to be used in the service of oppression, and a future that's representative of all our collective gains and struggles. And I hope that our best times are not in the past, but are yet to come, for all of us.
So I'd like to thank all of you for attending and staying throughout all the performances. This Friday, all of these individuals will be going to Alba to compete in regionals in hopes to go to state. The team goal is to win regionals, which is a really big deal in our region. We have the largest of any region in Oklahoma, and there's 4. So winning it would give us essentially a 20% shot at being state champions. So for one more final time, let's give a round of applause for all these competitors. And a really good thank you to Tyler Gibbons for working your purpose.
We're taking a picture. Amber, Isaac, we're taking a picture.
Lily, come on, get in here. Isaac, get next to him. Don't get behind him.
Right next to me.
This guy.
Me or him?
What was he doing?
Isaac all up on me, bro.
Taylor, you know what? I'm still proud of you.